Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Jordan. I'm the Sustainability Education Officer at North Sydney Council. And tonight we're presenting tech solutions to benefit your apartment building. And this is being run in partnership with Willoughby Council. Part of the reason we're hosting this webinar tonight is that both councils have a high demographic of people living in apartments. In North Sydney, I know it's 80%. So throughout the year, we always look to run apartment-specific workshops and webinars, and we'll be putting some previous webinars from last year and the year before on our YouTube channel, which I'll share in the email follow-up. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we meet today and pay most respects to the elders past and present. And I suppose just a couple of housekeeping things before we begin. So feel free to send through your questions and participate in the chat. Please keep it respectful and on topic because we only have an hour and a half. So we'll do our best to address these at the end of the session. So Brent will present and discuss his 10 tech solutions, and then we'll get to the questions at the end of the presentation. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. So without further ado, I'd just like to introduce Brent Clark from Wattblock. So thanks. Brent Clark is he's also works with North Sydney Council as part of our future proofing program, and I know has also worked and run some programs at Willoughby Council. So thank you for joining us, Brent.
Thanks so much, Jordan, and thanks, Barbara, and great to be here for tech solutions to benefit your apartment building. So as Jordan mentioned, we're going to have a look at about 10 different technologies that you might want to incorporate into your apartment building, working with your strata in most of these cases, which could help you on that journey to become a truly smart building. So we've had smartphones for a long time, and now there are a number of technology solutions, and most of these that we talk about tonight will have some sort of Wi-Fi connectivity or some sort of networking protocol or some sort of software system attached to it that will help make your building smarter. And so let's get into it. We're going to start with electricity monitoring devices. Now, one of the great things about putting an electricity monitoring device into your apartment building is that it can actually give the inhabitants of the building the ability to log into a website or a mobile phone app and monitor electricity consumption, maybe in the common areas, or maybe also attached to individual apartments. These sort of devices allow you to see spikes in electricity consumption that might occur because some equipment might be malfunctioning in the building. They help you prepare for things like understanding the load on the building when it comes to can we put EV charging in, or new air conditioners or induction cooktops. And there are devices out there from a number of different brands, but they'll either use 3G or 4G as a communications method or Wi-Fi. There's also another product out there that will piggyback on your mobile phone's data plan in order to capture meter readings. So these devices basically are connected either onto the electricity meters or right behind them. And, we'll look at some examples of buildings that have put these devices in, but the sort of things that you're hoping to get from using this is just a better understanding of the consumption patterns, the loads, and how you can manage that and perhaps reduce it over time to get more environmental benefit from your building. So we'll jump into a little case study from North Sydney area. So this is the Harbour Lights building with 33 apartments in Milsons Point. And they were one of the first buildings in the Future Proofing Apartments program to install one of these electricity monitoring devices. They can now log into a website and see updates of their electricity consumption every 5 minutes. And one of the useful functions that they were able to do is when they engaged an electric vehicle charging company, they could actually give that electric vehicle charging company a direct login to see their electricity consumption and help with preparing a EV charging solution for the building. Now, this building was particularly fortunate. They were able to get a federal government subsidy from ARENA, which is the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. And so they got a lower cost install than, than other people might be able to get today. But great example from the local area. And then if we move forward in the Future Proofing Apartments program, a bunch of other apartment buildings also installed electricity monitoring devices. You can see Grandview Apartments at 70 Alfred Street, Regency Apartments at 267 Miller Street, and 30 Morden Street at Wollstonecraft. So at 30 Morden Street in Wollstonecraft, they were considering using an Illume solar sharing system in the future, and they wanted to understand what the aggregate consumption of electricity of all the apartments was to better size a solar sharing system in the future. So, so that's our tech solution number one. Electricity monitoring devices, a number of uses. Also, Grandview Apartments weren't confident that their smart electricity meter was working correctly. So they wanted an independent view of their consumption, and they installed a device right next to the meter that didn't depend on the meter in order to be able to do bill validation and make sure that they were getting charged the right amount of electricity in their building. Now, so we've heard about electricity monitoring devices. They can use 3G or 4G or Wi-Fi connectivity. Well, what about water monitoring devices? Now, why would you want to put a water monitoring device into an apartment building, and how is this a tech solution? Well, first of all, most of the apartment buildings in both North Sydney and Willoughby areas that were built before 2016 don't have individual cold water meters for individual apartments. What this means is if there's an apartment complex and a number of units are tenanted out, then the tenants can actually use as much water as they want, and they're not billed on a per litre basis. What happens with one Sydney head water meter is that all the water consumption of the building is just rolled up into one mass, and then based on a formula, it's apportioned out unit by unit. So if, for example, you want to try and work out whether you have base load leakage in your strata apartment building, and by that I mean, are there pipes that are in the walls of the building that have started to leak? Are there leaking ball joints? Are there taps, garden taps, toilet cisterns, leaking shower heads, leaking isolation valves? Is there an issue with if you've got a strata pool, is the pool using too much water? All these things might show up if you were to put one of these water monitoring devices on the Sydney water head meter. And again, you can get systems that will allow you to see this consumption pattern of the water in the apartment block, through either a 2-week period if you install it for temporarily or permanently into the building. And one of the things that you really want to look for is in terms of base load leakage, at 3 a.m. in the morning, does water consumption in the apartment building in its entirety ever go down to zero? If it doesn't ever go down to zero, if there's like just 6 litres being consumed when everyone should be asleep over a period of 2 weeks at 3 a.m., then there's a chance that there's some leaking pipes or toilet cisterns, and you might be able to go and do a more invasive style of investigation using either a plumber or acoustic monitoring devices to get closer to where the water leaks are. So one building in Chatswood, where Willoughby Council actually sponsored one of these water monitoring devices going on the building for a period of 2 weeks. They realized that they had a base flow leakage problem of about 6 litres. And then they followed up and they engaged plumbers, and they actually smashed a few holes in walls to get to leaking pipes and replace some leaking pipes. And something like that was able to save an apartment building in Willoughby about $6,000 a year across 40 apartments. So if we go back to North Sydney area, here are some examples of buildings that have used water monitoring devices. The Wandakia Estate, again, Regency Apartments that also did the electricity monitoring, 106 Shirley Road and 1 to 5 Albany Street in St Leonard's. So this allows you to, get a good data sense of what's going on in terms of water consumption. And when you can measure something, you can then manage it. Okay, so let's move on to another smart device that can be installed into your apartment building complex. Now, when we have, not that we're in a period of drought at the moment by any means, we're in exactly the opposite at this point in time, but when we do have those periods of drought in Sydney, quite often strata buildings have to decommission their irrigation systems, and quite often the irrigation hoses wilt during this period of time of not having any water flowing through, and they get thrown out. Now, there's a new generation of smart irrigation systems, and what these systems do, they use the existing irrigation hoses that might be sprawling through a flower bed in your apartment complex or through your vegetable garden. And these devices have a few batteries in them. They plug in underneath a tap, and then they use Bluetooth communication to communicate from the tap to a power point somewhere inside the building where there's a Bluetooth receiver. And then that Bluetooth receiver, something like this, can actually connect to a Wi-Fi network, either a house Wi-Fi network, or in some cases, an individual apartment owner will donate a little bit of Wi-Fi to the cause. And then that allows this system to go to the local weather station and look up the precipitation forecast and the precipitation and adjust a water cycling schedule for the garden areas based on this data from the local weather station. So if you're in, say, Chatswood, it'll connect to the nearest weather station, which is in Artarmon. And this also has a mobile phone app, and the type of functionality allows you to have multiple zones. So you can have different watering schedules for different garden beds. You can also input like the soil type, whether you've got clay or a richer soil in different zones. And you might set a watering schedule that it, say, waters every second day. But if you have a period of high rainfall, it will automatically pick this up from the weather station and then delay watering the garden, maybe for a period of 14 days. Now, the other good thing about this is that when we next have a drought, when we go to El Nino, we'll be able to leave this in place and running, and it doesn't need to be decommissioned like a number of other water irrigation systems that you might have to turn off during those drought periods. So here we have a case study of another residential building with 40 apartments in Chatswood in Sydney. They installed 2 zones. So they bought 2 of these devices, and this allowed them, to also turn on and turn off the irrigation system, like from an apartment balcony. Multiple strata committee members have a login into the app, so more than one person can manage it. And it's a way of improving, using smart technology to improve water consumption in a strata garden. Okay, so now we'll move on to our next tech solution, which is carbon monoxide sensors for car park fans. Now, by law, everyone that's got an underground basement car park that's not naturally ventilated should by law be running a car park fan on a timer at least 4 hours a day to totally flush the air from the basement car park into the outside world. And the idea behind that is the internal combustion engine vehicles expel carbon monoxide. It builds up. It's not good for people's health and safety inside the underground car parks. But as you can imagine, if you're in an apartment complex and you're running one of these car park fans on a timer for 4 hours every day, perhaps 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, that might cost your apartment building $6,000 a year in electricity. Well, if you were to retrofit a carbon monoxide sensor system, you might have some of these sensors every 25 meters through the basement car park. You might, these sensors then detect carbon monoxide and then trigger the car park exhaust fans to run. And whereas you might have had 4 hours of a fan running each day, with this sensor system, it might be as little as 15 minutes of the fan system running every 2 weeks. So there's big energy saving that can be had through moving to this smart technology. And these sensors can connect not only to the ducted car park systems, but also the more modern jet vent systems that blow air out of them in order to push carbon monoxide out through louvers or naturally ventilated parts of the car park area. So that's another tech solution. Let's move on. And let's talk about solar monitoring systems. So here you can see a picture of a North Sydney future-proofing apartment building which has installed a solar system for the common areas and also decommissioned their common hot water plant to move to a heat pump. Now, when you get a solar system installed these days, people often ask, oh, what's the maintenance schedule on the solar system these days? Now, most modern solar systems that you buy will have a solar monitoring system attached to them, and someone from the building will be able to check the solar output via either a website or a mobile phone app. And this is usually achieved, again, through using Wi-Fi communications. But there are now some smart algorithms that are running that can analyze the common area load of the building, the solar generation, the solar export back to the grid, and some artificial intelligence that can even, for example, detect an inconsistent hot water demand being observed or an unusual circuit demand being observed. So over time, we'll start to get more clever solar monitoring systems that are attached to solar photovoltaic panel systems that are on our apartment buildings. Okay, so let's move to another tech solution. Most people that live in strata or have been on a strata committee are familiar with the annual fire safety check for the building. And typically during this fire compliance check, all the lighting in the building is subject to something called a 90-minute test. And that is powers dropped to the lighting circuits for 90 minutes, and a fire compliance officer walks around and makes a note of any emergency battery backed up lighting that doesn't stay on for the full 90 minutes during the annual fire compliance audit. And then, of course, for the building to get back to compliance, they need to then replace that light or replace the battery in the light, and then run another 90-minute test to see that all the lighting will stay up for 90 minutes next time there's a power outage. Now, there are now emergency lighting systems that use something called LoRa mesh wireless communication. So imagine having a communication sensor on each emergency light that's got a battery, emergency battery in it. And these can all communicate in a network together. And rather than having a fire compliance officer walking around the building during that 90-minute test, marking down which light might have failed so that another electrician can come later and install a replacement light, you can actually get just a full readout on a website or an app that tells you exactly which lights failed the test. And this can aid in the fire compliance process of becoming fire compliant again. And you also avoid things like the errors where the electrician comes to replace one particular light and accidentally replaces the other one and doesn't fix the problem. So this is using emergency Internet of Things, open networks in order to create a smart fire compliance audit that should also save you time and money in the building, because you don't have to spend as much time in terms of person hours for fire audit people. Okay, so now let's look at another tech solution for your apartment building. This is also related to lighting. And again, this is using wireless mesh technology. So just to give the context for this, in our apartment buildings, every year, a number of people actually accidentally run into the automatic garage doors or roller doors or gates, which might provide a security entrance into apartment buildings. And this has happened in real case studies in Chatswood, where cars have driven in to these roller doors as they're coming down and coming up. Now, the real problem is that as people drive from outside the building into the building, or drive from inside the building to outside of the building, their eyes actually have to adjust to a different amount of lighting. And there actually is an Australian standard called AS 1680, which has some rules about the type of lighting you should have in the special areas, the first 15 meters of a driveway inside a underground car park after you've entered through the roller door, and then the next 4 meters after that. And so just to let you know, a number of apartment buildings in both North Sydney and in Willoughby don't have compliance to this Australian standard. The reason it's there is because the place at which you're most likely to hit a pedestrian or run into a child on a bicycle is when you're driving out of an apartment block and your eyes are adjusting to the brighter light outside. But basically, the way this standard works, and if you wanted to be 100% compliant in your building, for the first 15 meters into the apartment building, you should have 800 lux of lighting. And then the next, and during the day, and for the next 4 meters, it should drop down to at least 160 lux during the day. And then at nighttime, for those first 19 meters into the building, you should have at least 160 lux. And now there are some mesh products where you can set up these special lighting systems that have a photoelectric PE cell sensor on the outside of the building that's detecting when the light is dropping outside the building. And then you've got this wireless communication network adjusting the brightness levels of this mesh of lights that are above the car park entry. And if you wanted to see this in operation for someone in Willoughby, you can drive into the Chatswood Chase car park and you'll see a system like this operating at the car park entrance to Chatswood Chase. So wireless mesh and PE sensor integrated car park entrance exit lighting systems is this tech solution. Okay, so let's move on. And the next tech solution we're going to have a look at is called Illume Energy Solar Sharing. Now, this is a product that's developed by Illume, which is a Melbourne-based startup company. They've been working on this product for over 7 years. And what it allows you to do is have one solar system on the rooftop of a townhouse or an apartment complex and connect that one solar system into multiple individual apartment electricity meters. And the idea behind this is it's better than what some apartments tried to do with like a separate solar system for one townhouse or separate solar systems for individual apartments, in that you can share a solar system and in the future share a battery amongst a number of different apartments. And this device can have up to 15 different apartments per device connected to it. And again, it uses the internet. It's got an accounting system based in the cloud. It measures all the solar power that's generated on the roof that's allocated through the individual apartment meters. And it adds up the amount that's allocated to each individual apartment through a month. In the first instance, it's detecting which apartments can use most of the energy and then squirting the energy through those apartments that can use it most. But to make it 100% fair and equitable, so everyone that's participating gets exactly the same amount of solar pushed through their individual apartment meter, they run a rebalance algorithm towards the end of the month so that everyone gets exactly the same amount and it's totally fair and equitable, which is what you need in any shared utility in a strata building. So if we jump over to North Sydney, there's a case study of 3 premium apartments in Raymond Road that have got a 16 kilowatt solar system shared using one of these solar sharing systems. And just to give you a couple more photos, that's the solar sharing device there. These are the inverters for the solar system. And that's the great view that you have looking out over the harbour. So that's an example of Illume solar sharing operating in the North Sydney Council area, another tech solution for your building. Okay, so let's have a little look at batteries. Now, this is a photo of Schofield Gardens. It's a room inside a strata building in Sydney. Now, when you first have a look at this, you actually have to be very careful because you might undercount the number of Tesla Powerwall batteries that are in this apartment complex in a room off the basement car park. So they're actually stacked up to 3 deep, like dominoes around the wall. And you've got 24 Tesla Powerwall batteries networked together in a network managed by a Tesla software system and operating as a single battery. 24 batteries coordinated to operate as a single battery together inside a strata apartment building right here in Sydney in Schofield Gardens. So batteries themselves are not dumb devices. They're now connected using technology, using Wi-Fi, and they can all communicate with each other and work in a battery network together. So here's an example of 24 batteries networked together running under one software operating system inside an apartment building. Now, let's just have a look as we move to our next tech solution, which is virtual power plants. We've just seen in the last tech solution an example of 24 batteries inside one strata apartment building, networked together and operating together. Well, what if we're able to get a number of batteries that are in different apartment buildings and residential houses and commercial buildings, and actually network those together and have them operate together? Well, this is a concept called a virtual power plant. Now, in South Australia, one of the world's largest virtual power plants is going in, which will see 50,000 batteries connected to residential houses throughout Adelaide, connected into a network together. And what this will allow is, during periods of peak impact on the grid, for example, in the middle of summer, when all the air conditioning is running at the same time and there might be a shortage in the grid, using a network of these batteries that are distributed across a number of different buildings, a central management system will be able to and have the right to discharge excess power that's stored in those batteries back into the grid for the purposes of stabilizing the grid and perhaps protecting against a brownout, and also lowering the power prices for everyone in the grid during that peak period of demand. So virtual power plants, there are already virtual power plants here in Sydney, and North Sydney Council themselves are testing some batteries in a virtual power plant setup that are on their own properties in North Sydney today. So that's something that will be coming to our apartment buildings as another tech solution in the future. Okay, so we've been through the first 9 of our tech solutions, and now we're going to spend a bit of time looking at systems which support electric vehicle charging. So we're not so much interested tonight in the charge points themselves. We're now interested tonight in the software systems that manage EV charging and are able to coordinate things like load balancing, are able to coordinate things like measuring how much electricity goes into different charge points, and are able to help different charge points talk to each other and operate in a network. So I just thought I'd mention, here are a couple of photos of electric vehicles from apartment buildings in the North Sydney area. We can see a Mercedes EQC on the left and a Hyundai Kona on the right. So also we're seeing electric vehicles come into the buildings now that are not just Teslas, but coming from a number of different brands. So in terms of electric vehicle charging suppliers on the market, there's now a plethora of different systems, software systems that can be used to coordinate electric vehicle charging. In particular, we're interested in the billing software area here, and we'll drill into that a little bit more in this section. So some names of some different EV charging billing systems that correspond to different EV charging installers in the market are here. And we'll go through a few case studies where we look at some of these different software systems helping to coordinate EV charging in apartment buildings. Now, these case studies are mainly outside of North Sydney and Willoughby areas, but they will be coming to buildings in this area very shortly. So if we look over at the Zinc building in Alexandria, this is an interesting example of using a number of different tech solutions in this particular building. So if you think about it, this building has a 25 kilowatt solar system for the common areas. It's got 3 electricity monitoring devices permanently installed in the building on different circuits. And now it's got 10 Tesla Generation 3 charge points, which all connect to Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi through the car park area, and they've got a flat cable on the perimeter of the car park area. So if people haven't seen a flat cable before, here is a flat cable running down the perimeter of a car parking, underground basement car parking. Now, just to let you know, we're not focused so much on the flat cable today. We're focused more around the load management system that might operate on a set of flat cables, being able to dictate how much power supply is supplied onto different flat cables and manage that during peak periods of electric vehicle charging in the building. So let's have another look at another EV charging case study. We'll go to the Altair building in Potts Point. So this is a building that's used EV box charge points, and they've used Car Charger's dynamic load balancing system, which has software algorithms that manage load balancing at a circuit level. And I will mention that this is one of the buildings that has used Wi-Fi in the basement car park, and they're using Wi-Fi connectivity to the EV box chargers. So just to give you a picture, here's an example of a charge point in the basement car park. And you'll notice that there's only one cable, which is a power cable, going to this charge point. There's no data cable going to this charge point because this charge point connects to a Wi-Fi network. And so it's using Wi-Fi connectivity. And then in the main switch room, you'll have this dynamic load balancing equipment, and that has the software algorithms to be able to manage load balancing on a per circuit level. If, for example, you've got multiple flat cables that need to be managed to not overload at the same time. So let's look at another EV charging case study. This time we'll go to the Richmond building in Piermont. And this is a building that's got 10 Tesla Generation 3 charge points in the basement car park. They've got 2 ChargeFox charge points, and they've got a hardware load balancer for the ChargeFox charge points, and they'll be using software load balancing via Wi-Fi for the Tesla charge points. So let's just have a look at some equipment here, some tech solutions in this building. So on the right, you've got a new 70-pole, 160 amp distribution board installed into the basement car park just for the purposes of charging electric vehicles. And then next to this, you have a data connectivity box that can run Ethernet cables from the charge points. The ChargeMate, ChargeFox charge points will use Ethernet cables, which will plug into this box, and they'll also run power cables that plug into this box. And that's repeated on each floor of the basement car park. They've got 3 floors, so they've got 3 sets of these 2 boxes in that particular building. But we should just mention some of the tech solutions that are coming to charge points. So we've noted that some charge points in the market are now becoming Wi-Fi enabled so that you don't need to run data cables to them. But also, the latest Tesla Generation 3 wall charger has the ability to connect to Wi-Fi and get software updates into these charge points that will actually update the functionality of the charge points over time. So that gives you a level of future-proofing that you might not have with a charge point system where you might need a technician to come out to the building and install firmware updates into charge points over time. So the sort of functions that might be able to be rolled out by Tesla via an over-the-air update of the software into these charge points over time might be support for open charge point protocol or support for charging non-Tesla vehicles. and creating an open charging platform that can work. And up to 6 of these Tesla charge points can be installed without the need to install any load balancing hardware in the switch room. They can affect software load balancing through using Wi-Fi communications to talk with the different charge points in the network. So again, we're still at the Richmond building. We'll just look at the overall load balancing architecture that they've got here. So they've allocated 100 amps 3-phase for EV charging at the moment. They've got 50 amps 3-phase allocated to the Tesla charging, 50 amps 3-phase allocated to the ChargeFox at the moment, but they could rebalance this over time. And they've got 10 Tesla Generation 3 charge points off Wi-Fi within this 50 amps and 2 charge points with the ChargeFox cloud management system running off that 50 amps. And then they're also future-proof because they've got 2 different management systems for billing and cost recovery. They've got the Tesla system coming online that'll use credit card transaction fees. So people will put their credit card number into a Tesla mobile phone app, and each time they charge, a micropayment will come off their credit card. And then here's the dashboard for the ChargeFox management system. Okay, and now one last example of an EV billing and load balancing software system, again, written here in the local market, is Explorin. And they're doing R&D into load balancing for apartment buildings, but they've got a particular area they're doing some research in, which is if you've got a solar photovoltaic system on the roof of the building, the Explorin EV billing management system will actually detect when that solar photovoltaic system might be doing solar export into the grid, and the R&Ds around, instead of sending that solar export out into the grid, diverting that solar power to go into charging electric vehicles that might be sitting at the charge points inside the building during a peak solar generation period. So here we have it. We're at the end of the formal presentation, and I'll just hand back to Jordan and to Barbara, and yeah, we can take some questions.
Jordan, you're on mute. Jordan, can you hear us? You're on mute. We can't hear you.
My apologies, everyone. Sorry about that.
It happens to everyone.
Yeah, so thanks, Brent, for talking us through those solutions. Really exciting, really. And I suppose just if I can kick it off, I'm wondering, I suppose it's each solution will apply differently for each building, but where would apartment get the best sort of bang for buck for out of those 10 solutions? Generally, where do you think each building should start?
Yeah, I really think the best place to start is the number one, the electricity monitoring solution. So, we've seen some buildings. Well, if someone has a smart meter and they want to get one of these devices themselves, we've seen people get like a device for $120 and put it on their own apartment meter if they've got a smart meter that's compatible. And just think, that's $120 well spent by an individual apartment owner, to get like an electricity monitoring device in that opens up this world of when you're consuming and allows you to help start managing when you use different equipment inside your own apartment. But then, even on the common area meters, like more industrial solution, the electricity monitoring. It just really makes sense that over time that we become conscious of the electricity that's being consumed in our buildings. And I like when you go to Australian Technology Park, they've actually got a few buildings where you walk in and there's a monitor next to the lift and it shows the load on that building through the day, through the 24 hours. And I think that's the sort of thing that, we'd like to see in apartment buildings in the future, becoming a smart building and making people aware of when electricity is being used. And when you can see something and it's visible, you can start to try and control it.
Yep, great. I know Annie had a question earlier. She was talking about emergency lighting monitoring. Will standard fire safety companies issue AFSS based on the results of the automated system? What's AFSS?
Yeah, so it's the people that are doing the research in that area, they've done everything. The software will actually create the reports that meet the AFSS. And so that was their whole purpose in building the system. And so, yeah, you would be able to, use it for your annual fire safety compliance test. Yeah.
Okay, great. Susie had a question about internet connection on common property or basically, posing it to the group. But have you seen or any building that's upgraded to NBN in common area property? And
yeah, so look, I'll jump to another building in North Sydney area, 106 High Street in North Sydney. They've actually got a house internet account, and have a think about this. There's a tech solution we didn't include in the top 10 today, which is internet Wi-Fi connected security cameras. And so this building at 106 High Street has like an NBN account for the house services. Then they've got a Wi-Fi router just in the switch room and repeaters. And what they've done there is they've actually connected 9 of those smart irrigation devices and a whole lot of internet security camera systems. Now, for people that do know security camera equipment in strata buildings and the old model where you've got basically got a computer in a locked up box and it's always crashing and it's pretty hard to kind of maintain it. And when the police need it, a camera's out and you don't have that camera view that you need. That's a smart way of thinking about doing security cameras. And we've seen that in a future-proofing building in North Sydney.
Yeah, right. Great.
And
Rob's got a couple of really good questions about Tesla batteries, and he was thinking that do batteries need to be ventilated or outside? And secondly, two-way charging. Is that something that's going to be popping up in the near future in apartment buildings as well?
Yeah. So on the first one, look, I was really surprised to see that the Tesla Powerwalls advanced to the point that it doesn't have any overheating issues when they're lined up like dominoes like that. And prior to seeing that, I would have always said to people, you want batteries in a well-ventilated outdoor area. I would have said the best place for batteries really is natural ventilation somewhere on the outside of the building, but as the technology gets better, then people will start pushing the envelope a little bit more like you've seen in that. And perhaps there's a ventilation extraction in that room. So don't, just because it's in an enclosed underground room, don't assume there's no ventilation into that room where we showed the picture of the 24. And then the two-way charging. So one of the tech solutions after batteries was virtual power plants. Now, imagine a whole bunch of electric vehicles parked in basement car parks, which are themselves able to do things like vehicle to grid or vehicle to load. So people have seen the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Nissan Leaf, and the Mitsubishi Outlander can do vehicle to grid or vehicle to load. And the idea is if you've got some charge inside your car battery and it's a peak grid period and you want to get paid for discharging your vehicle battery and get paid a good price for it, then go for it. The only issue is at the moment, the two-way charge points cost about $10,000 that are able to do the two-way charging, and that price will come down. But right at the moment, it's just a bit too expensive and you're probably not going to get your money back while the two-way charge points cost so much money. But if they get down to like $2,500 or $2,000, then I think everyone would do that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brent. I suppose a common question from Thomas is how, as a renter, how do you encourage, I suppose, strata landlords to adopt some of the solutions that that you mentioned tonight?
Yeah, look, if you are a renter, remember that you usually have a direct relationship with your energy retailer, and as a renter in an apartment building, you can call up your energy retailer and request a change to a smart meter. And so don't think that you're completely locked out of, the tech solutions. There are a few things. That's one where a renter is empowered because you're paying the electricity bill directly with your chosen energy retailer, assuming it's not an inclusion in your rental contract. And so you're empowered to go and get a smart meter. And then you can go and buy a $100 device that plugs on the front of that smart meter and use a mobile phone app and start managing your energy consumption inside your individual apartment. But we've had renters that have electric vehicles come to us. It's hard for renters to get the ball moving on electric vehicle charging systems being installed in apartments. And I think, if, for example, you're renting a townhouse that has a little courtyard or garden outside it, you could get one of those smart irrigation devices and use that, to irrigate your vegetable garden in your townhouse courtyard. So there are some things that you still can do, and you could focus on tech solutions inside your apartment, like if you've got lamps that are portable that you take with you, you can screw in smart lighting, such as like voice-activated lighting into those lamps that you can take with you to your next location as well. And so there's some things that you can work on if you're coming in as a renter.
Yeah, great. I think there's one more question from Rob about the charge points, and you did list a number of them. There's so many brands now, and so what is the dominant brand and at the moment, and what are the most most common?
The dominant brand is Tesla for charge points, and that's a function of for a long time them always including the charge points with their vehicles, them being the first mover into the market. But it's really encouraging to see so much competition coming into this space, and that will drive innovation. And we've got local Australian companies innovating, and a famous Australian company called Tritium is a unicorn company now making DC fast chargers and going to move into AC chargers that can be used in apartment buildings as well. So after their listing in the US.
Right. Wow. So are Tesla chargers compatible with only Teslas, or are there any other cars?
So the Generation 3 charge point with a Type 2 plug will be upgradable to charge other vehicles, not just Teslas. And when you're setting them up at the moment, the last question that you get in the Tesla charge point is this only for Tesla or is it for other vehicles? But they haven't actually enabled the software update that'll come via Wi-Fi later this year into the into the Tesla charge points to manage the other brands.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great.
Yeah. And yep, another one on induction cooktops. So first of all, we love induction cooktops in terms of, remember, the goal for our apartment buildings is to complete the electrification of the apartment buildings. And that means to eventually rid ourselves of any gas connection into the apartment buildings. And so induction cooktops are the future replacement for gas cooktops. And if you go to Hong Kong, there are examples of high-rise skyscrapers doing complete gutting of all the gas cooktops in one hit and moving them all to induction. If you look at somewhere like Eastgate building in Bondi Junction, they've already gutted all their kitchens and removed gas entirely from that building here in Australia. And that's a trend that will continue. The challenge, though, just being with the older strata buildings, is that if everyone moves to induction cooktop, at some point you might want an increase in capacity from the nearest substation.
Okay, great. So I think that's all the questions today. I suppose one final one for me, I was just wondering, with all the solutions, I'm sure there's some people going, so, I mean, you mentioned maybe the first solution, the electronic monitoring to start with, but where do people go? What do they do to get the process and the ball rolling in their own building?
Yeah, so the first thing we say is, if you're an owner in an apartment building and you're not on the strata committee, make sure you attend your next annual general meeting. And if you wanted to start activating in your building, just as an owner, you don't have to be on a strata committee. Any lot owner can put any motion on any annual general meeting or extraordinary general meeting. If you're in a building that doesn't have electronic voting for strata, then you just have to make sure that you get your motion to the strata manager probably 25 days before the annual general meeting date or the extraordinary general meeting date. That gives the strata manager a few days to get it into the minutes before they have to send it out 21 days before the meeting. So remember, every owner can put a motion on any annual general meeting or extraordinary general meeting in any strata building in New South Wales. And so you don't even have to be on the committee, but we also encourage you to join your strata committee, get involved, roll up your sleeves, and try and make some of these projects happen.
Excellent. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Brent, for a really exciting presentation. I think it's something that's a little bit different, but I think it can also make a big difference in buildings. So thank you very much tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Each individual council, North Sydney and Willoughby, will send out contact to you with further information, and we'll be continuing to push apartment-focused education and events throughout the year. So, yeah, thanks, everyone, and have a good night.
Thanks, Brent. Thanks, Jordan. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, thank you. All right.